Well, hey everybody, welcome to United Online.
UnitedChurch.live.
Yeah.
We are live.
It's good to see you. My name's Aaron. I'm one of the pastors here in this online space now.
And I'm Trevor, also one of the pastors here at .live.
.live. Hey, go ahead and grab your phone and pull up UnitedChurch.live and check in. Go to that check-in process, click that button, fill out all your information in there. That'll get you a part of our mailing list, our email list, which will actually give you more information about who we are, about what we're doing, about events and ideas and things that are happening within our community. Now more than ever, that's going to be a really important space for us in communication and in communicating what it is that we are doing and how it is that we're making this happen. So make sure you do that. Also within there is a little space that you can fill out a prayer request. So if you have things that you want us to be praying for, especially if you're sick, we want to know that so that we can check in with you and make sure that you're doing okay. And especially if you need groceries or those sorts of things, we can do door drops and those sorts of things. So make sure that you have checked into .live. And as you scroll down on that page, you'll see other events that are coming up, other things that we are doing as a church throughout this quarantined season within the life of our church and in the life of Seattle.
Yeah, and that's kind of where our central communications hub will live as well. So that's kind of where, when we put out different announcements or things you can walk through and poems and whatnot will all kind of be there, as well as UnitedChurch.love. So the main site will kind of be a landing page that will have different updates on what we're doing. So like, when the time comes that we're able to actually meet in person again, we don't know when that will be. Like, this is kind of a new experiment that we're trying. It's kind of indefinite at this point. Like, we would like to believe this only will last a couple weeks, but based on how things are going, we're probably looking through it at least into April and maybe even beyond. So UnitedChurch.love, so the main site is kind of where you'll see whether or not we are still meeting in this virtual space or if we're actually back together.
Exactly. That's going to be a really important thing, but also that email list will be another way in which you can find those things out as well.
Yeah. And what this space is going to look like is, obviously today it's just Aaron and I here sitting together, and we're kind of going to do a video podcast of sorts. Is kind of what's going to happen. But then throughout the next couple weeks, we're going to try bringing in people to sing and to kind of play music, as well as maybe have people guest reading poems or scriptures to kind of bring others and bring you into this space. We don't want it to just be the two of us. We want to kind of bring others into this. The reason it's us two right now is just because it's been a crazy week. And it's just, a lot of different things kind of happening, and so that's why it's just us at the moment. But we want to walk alongside you and bring you into this and not just be us, because that's not the church. Like, we are not the celebrity people, we are just the ones that have the most free time. So here we are, and so today we're going to kind of go through two different practices, one up front and then one at the end. And as well as Aaron is going to bring a message and kind of a devotional style thing, and we'll kind of go through that. And so as you are sitting at home, whether you are on your phone or if you're casting it to your TV or watching on a laptop, whatever format, I want you to kind of be in this space. So commit yourself to kind of being here for the next 15 minutes. And kind of walking through this together. It may feel awkward because I'm going to be asking us to kind of close our eyes and like do different interactive things, but we want to participate. We want to like do this together as best as we can in this space. It's going to be a little different, a little awkward, but that's kind of where we are. And a little bit of TV magic. This is actually pre-recorded. And so we are streaming it live, so we are all doing it together at the same time, but we are pre-recording this. Future ones will more than likely be live streamed, but this one is being pre-recorded because Aaron will be traveling back to Illinois on Sunday, so we would not be able to do this live in person because he will be on a plane. And so those are kind of unforeseen circumstances that we couldn't, weren't within our power, and so that's kind of what's happening today. So if you will, we are going to go first through what is called a centering prayer. And so what a centering prayer is a prayer to kind of like get our minds kind of cleared and still. And so usually what you do is you find a word or a phrase to kind of center your mind on. So whenever your mind starts to wander into something else, you come back to this word or phrase. And I want to offer, it can be any phrase, but I want to offer 3 different ones that you can use. The first is you are hope, or the word hope. Second is you are peace, the word peace. And the third is something that we'll reference later, is be still and know that I am God. And so those are the 3 kind of words or phrases that I want to offer to you as we go through this. And so together, I want us all, actually, us included here, to close our eyes and to take in a collective inhale and exhale. So one more time, inhale and exhale. And I'm going to read a prayer, and then we are going to sit in silence for about 30 seconds, focusing on that word or phrase. We've come to worship God, who makes streams flow from rock, who turns the parched earth into springs of water, who sends the rain from heaven and makes the wilderness blossom and flourish. As the deer thirsts for flowing streams, so we thirst for you, O God. Come, let's worship our living God, who pours out living water on all who thirst. Let's let the Spirit wash over us in this moment. God, we thank you for your presence. You are omniscient. You are everywhere. And as we are scattered across the city, you are with us, all of us, at the same time, collectively. So we thank you for being a God of hope, being a God of peace, and a God of comfort. And as we are here together in different spaces, would you open our eyes to see, our ears to hear, our minds to understand, and our hearts to feel what you would have for us this day. And it's in your Son's name that we pray. Amen.
So earlier this week, I pressed send on an email. It was an email that let you all know that we wouldn't be able to gather this Sunday. And the moment that I finished that email, the moment that I clicked send, I broke down. I began to weep. And it wasn't a pretty cry. It was one of those deep, bellowy sorts of cries to where all of the emotion, all of the tension, all of the things that we collectively have been experiencing as a church and as a people and as a city kind of just boiled up and overflowed out. It was all of this fear and all of this anxiety, all of this stability or lack of stability in the midst of the chaos that I was beginning to feel. That as I was beginning to release some of that tension that I was holding for not just myself, but I felt as if I was holding for others. That I was holding all of this fear, all of this anxiety, all of this lack of stability and chaos, that there was no calm in the midst of this storm. I finally was able to just let it all out. And I wept. I think we all feel this. I think we all feel the chaos deeply. This loss of stability, this loss of structure, this loss of regularity, of what life was like and now is no longer. And in the midst of all of that, in the midst of all of that struggle, in the midst of all that chaos, I think what we have done is we have begun to start to do. We have begun to look at how can I recreate these sorts of things? How can I create a new sense of normalcy here in this work from home environment, in the midst of this absolute craziness of locking down everything, as the libraries are now closed, as restaurants are shuttering their doors and even closing for good, as everything continues this rapid decline towards isolation, we start to create new things for us. And so we start throwing all of these new ideas up against the wall, just hoping that they'll stick. But in all of our anxiety and in all of our activity, we never really allow the raging waters that is within our soul, the raging waters that are just tumultuous within our spirit, to subside. And so all of this anxiety, all of this fear, all of this hopelessness, all of this chaos just continues to roll and roll and roll and churn and churn and churn within. And we just want to let out this collective scream. But we can't. We can't, because we have to hold it together. And yet in the midst of it all, in the midst of all of this chaos, there is this still, soft voice of God calling out to us, saying, "Be still. Be still and know that I am God." I've sat with that. I've sat with that verse quite a bit this week. This idea of being still in the midst of the chaos. Be still. Be still and know that I am God. So I want to invite you to just take a breath with me. To take a nice, deep, full breath that inhales all of the tension, all of the chaos that is around you. And perhaps you need to look at the person next to you and just say, "We need this. We need this.
We need this."
So let's do that. Let's take this really big, deep, collective breath. Ready? And just let it out. And if you need to groan while you breathe, if you need to let out an audible sigh in the midst of this, go for it. Let's try it one more time. Psalm 46 is where we find that verse, "Be still and know that I am God." But at the very beginning of that psalm, in verses 1 through 3, this is what is written. "God is our refuge and our strength, an ever-present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear, though the earth give way and the mountains fall into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam and the mountains quake with their surging." Chaos surrounds us. Chaos is all around us. Everything that we have experienced over the course of this past week, 2 weeks, has been the mountains falling into the sea, the rivers raging and foaming and churning and burning through us. And it may seem as if the world is just falling apart all around us. Now be still. Be still and know that He is God. Breathe. This is a Sabbath moment for us. This is a moment of pause. This is a moment of ceasing to be active. This is a moment of rest. This is a divestment of activities. To be still in the presence of a God who says, "I've got this. I've got you. No matter how much chaos continues to churn around us, no matter how much this lack of stability and normalcy is affecting our souls, affecting our hearts, affecting our minds, there is a God who just says to us, be still, simmer down. I've got this. I've got you. We must not forget that it is not action that lends significance to the moments that we are experiencing now. It is not the collective actions that we want to take, the work that we are doing to try and recreate normalcy. That is not what brings significance to the moment. The significance is already here. It is the moment of being still and knowing that He is God, that brings significance to our actions. Sabbath is our moment. This is the sacredness of our moment right here and right now. And Sabbath allows us to pause and reflect. And it's not simply a pause that refreshes us, but rather it's a pause that transforms us. It allows us to push into neighborly engagement. It allows us to push into love and presence. And those are the things that define our lives over production and consumption. All of the activity that we're trying to do, all of the activity that we're engaging in to try and create something new, those are not the things that create Sabbath rest. The forced divestment of activity that we are experiencing now. But it is love and it is presence with our neighbors that define our lives and that define this moment. We've been forced into this void of activity. We have been forced into this moment. Breathe. Be still. And listen to the still, soft voice of God who is ringing in our ears, that is calling us to pay attention to the people that are around us, to listen well to their needs, to listen well to what it is that they want and are crying out for here in this space. And allow the Spirit of God to call us forth into that, and then act. Oftentimes I think our activity pushes us away from being able to listen to what it is that God is leading us into. We act before we listen. And I think that's our culture, right? We're a very active culture. We want to do, and I don't think that's just our U.S. culture. I think that's our Seattle culture, and I think that's specifically our church culture. We are a people of activists that want to do, that want to create change, that want to make things right in this world around us. We want to love well, and it's beautiful. I think oftentimes our activity forces us to push ahead just a little bit faster than we're ready for. I think we're too quick to jump straight into action. And so let us stop. Let us be still. Let us listen. And let us act. And there find the life that God has for us. A life of love and healing. A life of grace and a life of peace. Let's pray. God, in this space, may you silence our hearts. May you silence the voices that are rattling around in our minds. May you silence our spirits, that we may hear from you, that we may listen well to you, that we may know that you are God, that you have us, that you have us. Let us fall into your arms. And from that place of peace, from that place of rest, may we set forth as a people to do the things that you are leading us into. It is in your Son's name that we pray all of these things.
So we're actually going to take a minute to listen and to pause. Over the season of Lent, so we're still in Lent, we're still in the season of anticipation and waiting for Easter and processing and mourning and all of these things. And throughout the season of Lent, we've been using a podcast called Awake My Soul Podcast, and you can find that at anywhere you find your podcast. We've switched providers, so now you can find it anywhere. As well as awakemysoulpodcast.com is a quick and easy way to get to it. And what that is it is using a practice called Lectio Divina. We've used Lectio Divina now for 3 seasons. And now throughout the season of Lent, we've been doing it together on Sundays. And so today, we are going to walk through Lectio Divina. And if you've never done it before, what it is it's a way to listen and absorb Scripture. And so you read through, typically you would read through the lectionary, which is kind of, you get through the entirety of Scripture in 3 years. But we are using it a little bit differently. We've done that in the past using the lectionary, but throughout the season of Lent, we've been going through the book of John. And so we've been reading through the book of John. I think we're in chapter 8 right now. And by the end of Lent, so by Easter, we will have read the entire book of John, which is great for a couple things. Is one, because you're reading through the gospel, and 2 is our next series will actually be on John. And so we will use that information for later. And then throughout the season of Lent, during this series that we're in at the moment, we've been using Isaiah chapter 40, verses 27 to 31, which I think is even more important and pertinent today as we kind of process everything that has been going on. We picked this passage before the coronavirus was kind of taking place, so it's very timely. And so we're going to go through that practice today and this afternoon. And so similar to before, I invite you to kind of go into this space with confidence, even though it may feel awkward if you're sitting there holding your phone or on your laptop or whatever. But I invite you to close your eyes and to get comfortable. If it's helpful to kind of do body scans to help yourself relax, so kind of going down and finding the points of tension. Maybe that'll be in your shoulders. If you notice your shoulders getting tense, relaxing your shoulders. If you notice tension in your elbows, kind of letting them hang, letting your hands be released of tension. Just finding yourself relaxed and focusing on your breath. And as I read through Isaiah chapter 40, listen for a word or a phrase that stands out to you. So hear these words from Isaiah chapter 40, verses 27 to 31. Why would you ever complain, O Jacob, or whine, Israel, saying, God has lost track of me. He doesn't care what happens to me. Don't you know anything? Haven't you been listening? God doesn't come and go. God lasts. He's creator of all you can see or imagine. He doesn't get tired out, doesn't pause to catch his breath. And he knows everything, inside and out. He energizes those who get tired, gives fresh strength to dropouts. For even young people tire and drop out. Young folk in their prime stumble and fall. But those who wait upon God get fresh strength. They spread their wings and soar like eagles. They run and don't get tired. They walk and don't lag behind. Let's take a moment to pause. Listening to that inner voice. What is one word or phrase that stood out to you while listening? Let's take a moment to listen, listening to that inner voice, to the Spirit speaking to us. What do you hear? What is it saying? If you don't hear anything, that's fine. If you do hear something, What are you going to do with that? Each week on Sundays, we take communion. And we do that as a family. We do that in unity and together. And so in this space where we are virtual and in different homes and watch parties together, we actually want to invite you right now to go to your fridge and find some juice or some kind of drink and a cup. The cup shouldn't be in your fridge, but it might be. Live your life, I don't know. My sister, this is way derailed, but my sister would actually drink milk and then leave just a little bit of milk and would always put the cup back in the fridge. And so at any point of the day, there would always be a cup with a little bit of milk. So maybe you're like that, I don't know. But go to your fridge, find a drink, and some bread or crackers or something along those lines, so that we can take communion together. We may not be in the same space, but we're all watching this at the same time and doing this together. So if you would, kind of go ahead and get up and do that. I'm kind of rambling now to kind of give you that opportunity to go and do that. Go and do it. We mean it. And we're not joking. I have goldfish here, but we're not going to take that. That's for Forrest. He was here earlier and is now elsewhere. But we have bread here. And our little espresso cups these are Slovakian actually. So I have my bread here, and let's take communion together. So on the night when Jesus was betrayed, he took the bread and he broke it. And he passed it around. This probably isn't super sanitary, but passed it around the table, and he said, "Take and eat. For this is my body, which has been broken for you." And in the same way, after supper, he took the cup and he passed it around and he said, "Take and drink, for this is my blood, which is poured out for the forgiveness of sins. Let's eat together." So there are a couple things coming up over the next few days. Tonight, actually, at 6 o'clock, Hannah is going to be walking us through a processing of the COVID-19 virus in community. And so some of you may be familiar with this word, the learning circle. And it's something we've talked about, gosh, it must have been like 6-7 months ago at this point. But it's something called the Learning Circle, and it's a way to kind of process these large events. And so we're going to do this together in community. And Hannah's going to lead us through that at 6 o'clock tonight using Zoom. So if you're not familiar with Zoom, it's a kind of like online conference meeting app. You don't need an account to be able to use it. You just need either a web browser or if you do have the app, that is usually a better way to do it. But
the app's free and you can just pick it up in any.
Yeah, the app is free. You can use any Gmail, email account, whatever, to be able to sign up. And there will be a link at unitedchurch.live. And we'll also share it on Facebook, and it'll be sent in an email as well. So if you checked in, you will get that email. And so that's kind of the couple different places to find this meeting ID.
It's super simple. It's super simple to get in on it, and it's a very low barrier for all of us to
it should be as simple as just clicking a button, I'm pretty sure. So you just click a button, the link, and it'll populate everything and go from there. So we'll do that together, and we'll actually be able to see each other's faces. So that's the cool thing about this. So like right now, we can't really see your faces, but what we'll be able to, we'll be able to do in this Zoom thing is have an opportunity to kind of have dialogue, talk with one another, and see face to face, so that we can kind of get over that social distancing through technology. And that is something we might utilize in the future as well, in different ways, in different spaces. So if we kind of familiarize ourselves with Zoom, that'll make our lives a lot easier.
Absolutely.
A couple other things is to, like I mentioned earlier, the Awake My Soul podcast. Now more than ever, that is pretty important for us all to kind of go through something together. And it's well, like I said, right now we're going through the book of John. I think we're in John chapter 8, maybe chapter 9 at this point. And they're usually only about 5 to 7 minutes, and it is basically doing the same thing that we just did a few moments ago, walking through Isaiah. It's the same thing where we'll read through a section of John, and then a question will be asked, and then the benediction will happen. So it's usually about 5 to 7 minutes, and if you haven't been listening yet, you can go back to the beginning of John and listen through them all, and kind of get through that way.
Super valuable.
Yeah. And one other thing is to kind of combat social distancing and kind of the space we're in, is we actually want to encourage you to send a note to someone. To think of someone that maybe is isolating themselves, or you feel like they need an encouragement at this point. When Talissa and I were coming up with this idea, we were thinking of, like, she in the past had people write a letter. But we actually discourage writing letters, because writing letters passes around saliva. And so we don't want to be responsible for spreading saliva everywhere. So I would actually encourage an email, because that's who doesn't like getting, okay, no one likes getting emails, but we like getting emails from friends. So send an electronic mail. Or send a text message or a phone call, whatever you feel comfortable doing. To just kind of encourage one another, be for one another, and walk alongside one another in this space. Now more than ever, we need each other because of just everything going on. And our city needs us as well, to be the hope and peaceful presence that we are called to be.
Yeah, it's super easy, right? Like, I'm just about done with an email right now. If you don't have somebody's email address, just try Facebook, send them a text message, something, just anything to connect with somebody that kind of removes that barrier.
And so to close today, in the same way that we close every week in our services in person, we're going to close in the same way here as a community. And so let me say this blessing over all of us. May God bless you with discomfort at easy answers, hard hearts, half-truths, and superficial relationships, so that you may seek truth boldly and live from deep within your heart where God's Spirit dwells. May God bless you with anger at injustice, oppression, and exploitation of people, so that we may work for justice, freedom, and peace. May God bless you with tears to shed for those who suffer from pain, rejection, starvation, and war, so that we may reach out our hand in comfort and turn their pain into joy. May God bless you with foolishness, to believe that through Jesus Christ we'll have the strength and power necessary to create change in this world and in our neighborhood, so that together we will courageously try what others claim cannot be done. May God bless you with remembrance, that we are called to continue God's redemptive work of love and healing in God's place, in and through God's name, in God's Spirit, continually creating and breathing new life and grace into everything and everyone we touch. Amen. Go in peace, and God bless.
You are the very breath of my soul. Don't let my heart beat far from you, oh God. I'm not strong. You Let go